Okay, we are back here one more time. I'm doing a couple of 3 videos here today, and this one is going to be the shift, and this one is going to be number 5. It's going to be a combination of two. I've had people ask me, all right, how the teen years, and also how trauma can in fact affect the intensity of these soul-to-soul connections that are taking place with people. And actually, it's a very good topic. What I have found at this particular time is when you're dealing with the intensity of these soul-to-soul connections individually or as a couple or with two people, is recently what's happened is it's getting very, very hard to differentiate, if at all, because as I believe a couple of people have already done, the signs and symptoms of a twin flame connection or a twin flame union, whatever your most popular word you want to use, are getting so similar they're all blending together, all right, which is exactly what was supposed to happen over a period of time. And I actually talked about this about 4 or 5 years ago, and nobody would listen at that time. Finally, they're starting to listen to what I had to say, and other people are actually talking about it, and this is a good thing. But what I have learned is the first thing you need to take a look at when you're looking at the dynamics of how this is going to unfold for an individual or two individuals in these soul-to-soul connections as to the intensity, you actually have to do a personality profile on the person. For example, if I'm counseling a person and I'm looking at what is it that is causing the intense dynamics that's going on between the two of them, I first of all have to get acquainted with their personality. I got to know what kind of personality they are. There are some people who are very intense, very gung-ho, very explosive, very expressive people. And for these people, if they've had any kind of trauma in the past, say for example in their teen years, let me emphasize this point. In your teen years, all right, when you're going through that teenage years, yes, I understand that the personality is begin to be formulated, even before that. But actually the etheric body and the ingredients that are going to go into the etheric body and how you're going to perform as an adult and for the rest of this incarnation is specifically downloaded into your etheric body, into your chakra system, and into the endocrine system as you're going through the teenage years. In my opinion, it's probably the most important time in your life, and it's the most important time for the appropriate environment, the appropriate and proper input, and any trauma that an individual may experience. Now, you know as well as I do that most of us during our teenage years, if not all of us at some point, have suffered being traumatized, being sexually abused, being physically, mentally, emotionally abused, have grown up in environments that were very shitty to say the least, and we've come up with all kinds of experiences why they happened, and really all of that is not important anymore. What is important is to recognize that anything and everything that may have happened to you at some point in time, be it positive or negative, especially the negative, now is at a time in your life via the soul-to-soul connection, or it may even happen to you individually, where this can be broken up and can be expelled from you as an individual. And in many cases, what will happen is you'll have the other person will do this. And actually, I've mentioned this before in a video, that when you're in the soul-to-soul connection or the twin flame connection, whatever label you want to call it, and you get to this particular point in time where you're seeing the dynamics of explosion take place with the two of you, you must understand something or you're going to go no further in development. And that is this: don't take it personally. Understand that the reason it's gone bad is because the energetic interplay between the two of you is stimulating the triggers in the emotional body to express energetically. And these in turn are attempting to release, let go of, or dissolve the energetic template within the etheric body. And I'll give you that again so you understand. I'll repeat it. When you have the exchange going on between two people and it's getting heated, what's happening is one is acting as a trigger for the other. One initiates a trigger reaction in a person's emotional body. That gives an energetic release, which also triggers a release or a letting go of, or a bringing out of the templated energetic template of that particular trauma that's contained within the etheric body as an energetic template. Now, depending upon the personality of the individual and depending upon the personality of the other individual, the two individuals will not, in every case, in any case for that matter, will not experience it to equal degrees, because there's no such thing as two personalities who are identically alike. It's not possible, all right? I don't care what anybody says, all right? There are always differences in personality development because no two people grow up the same, no two people develop the same, no two people even get the same nutritional content as the body is forming. And that's another point that I want to make mention of here. In a lot of cases, I have found that, especially in regards to teenagers have very sloppy eating habits, all right? They don't tend to eat properly and they don't tend to eat regularly. And in a lot of cases, the food intake is crucially important, is when the time that they least pay attention to food, nutrition, and intake. And at the time when the body is forming, the cells, the molecules, and the basic construction of the body is forming, that's the time when high octane food is necessary. And I'm not talking about pop and junk. I'm talking about foods that contain a lot of nutrients, vitamins, phytonutrients, everything else needs to be in there. If they don't, then it's going to short circuit the growth pattern, and somewhere along the line there's going to be a deficiency in consciousness as the person grows up. The other thing that comes into play is if the proper nutrients are not there, the proper food intake, the endocrine system that is there in the people will not function properly and will cause problems later on in life. So, as I was saying, when the situation comes up between the two people, don't take it personally as to what's going on. Understand something, and you need to really grasp this concept that what the two of you are seeing, all right, is you're seeing yourself in a relationship. And you're seeing yourself in a relationship based on the old belief system, boy meets girl or girl meets boy or whatever combination you want to do nowadays, it doesn't matter, that it's a relationship that's forming and pending. You have to stop seeing it that way. That's a possibility as an outcome. But initially, in the beginning, what is going on, because the dynamics are so intense, is that any impurities, any imbalances, any traumas, anything that would impede the progress of that process that's going on between the two people has to come out and has to come into play. It has to be brought out, it has to be resolved, it has to be let go of. And what's happened is, if you don't get it on the first crack, you're going to get another crack at it. And if you don't get it on the second crack, you're going to get another crack at it. Unfortunately, what happens is when you say that and talk about this process that people are going through, and you add in the twin flame concept, this is where chaos abounds. All right? This is where it gets so ridiculous it's not even funny. Whenever you have these soul-to-soul connections, all right, anything that has happened to you, I'll give you an example. One of the things I did a lot of when I was doing a lot of energy work on people, when I was putting together our main energetics modality, is I worked on a whole host of people who had been sexually abused as teenagers, all right? And what I found was that this affected them in a way that was, to me, quite amazing. You remember I talk in a lot of my videos about the etheric body and the etheric body becoming the new vehicle of how we're going to exist in three-dimensional reality. Well, I want you to think about something, okay? And I want you to realize the significance and how important this process is as it's going on between two people. Talking about sexual abuse, there are a lot of you out there who have been sexually abused, all right? Especially when you're a teenager. This is the effect that it has. Not so much as you're an adult, but as a teenager it does, because you're in that stage or that phase where you and your little girl or little boy that lives inside. Some people we like to call it the subconscious. I think that's the stupidest name to call it. All right, it sounds kind of sterile, kind of void, like nothingness to it. When you call it the little girl, or little boy, it has some definition, some meaning to it, some oomph to it. I like oomph. Oomph is good. Oomph is really good. So when you call it that, you get some electricity, you get some magnetism to it. So when you're that close together, everything you take it in like a sponge. You literally suck it in, all right? And what happens when you go through sexual abuse, what happens is when it happens, the individual themselves must do something to protect themselves because they're so vulnerable, they're so open. So what do? And I've seen this so many times, it's really, I don't want to go there. They withdraw. Now, what I mean by withdraw is their etheric body. Remember, I talk about the etheric body quite often. In sexual abuse and in traumas of any other kind, physical or otherwise, the etheric body will move away from the physical. Okay? And depending upon the continuation and the length of the abuse, I have seen cases where almost all of the etheric body, from head to toe, was completely out of the physical body and was actually apart, a distance apart from the physical body. So how the hell is that person going to function? Because that's their way of dealing with the trauma, the pain that they went through, all right? This can also happen in an accident, whiplash, falling down, getting a smack in the jaw, somebody beats the shit out of you. All of this, all right? This is why when I see football and hockey and all of that shit, these guys have no idea what they're doing. They're just literally getting paid to get their bodies fattened to shit, and they'll pay for it later on when they get older, especially now with the evolutionary process. So what I had to do during doing the energy work on the people was I actually had to recover, grab hold of their etheric body, actually pull it back into the physical body, and then actually go to the birth connection, which is the belly button, and pin their etheric body back in their physical body. And the results I seen immediately with some of these people was they'd go through all kinds of weird contortions and sounds and burping and farting and all kinds of stuff going on as the body gets realigned. So this is basically what's happening with a lot of people, all right? And sometimes what happens in a trauma, you can actually get a piece of you, for example, separates, all right? And it's left, it's gone. And what I mean that you call that, some people call that, I don't know, bringing in their shadow selves and bringing in their bits and pieces. I don't like that terminology. It's so old school, all right? When you do that and you have an aspect of yourself that's separated, you have to keep in mind something here when you're doing this. If you have an aspect of yourself that's separated a piece from you, be it through a trauma or whatever, every day that you take a breath, you're breathing in air, you're breathing in prana, you're breathing in life force energy. It has to go to nurture and feed every part of you, even if that part of you is way over there or is completely separated from you. So in the soul-to-soul connection, all right, I'm trying to get people to realize there's so much more going on than just you and him and getting in the sack and drinking wine and love and romance and all of that stuff. But that's all the people on YouTube want to talk about is the romance, the love, the fantasy, the Getty card, having wine, great sex and all that stuff. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But the problem is it's not moving. It's staying the same in that same old blind perspective. We're not moving up into the higher vibrations of sexuality. We're not moving up into the higher vibrations of what people want to call love here in the physical. We need to get going. And this is why in the soul-to-soul connection, you're having sensual and sexual experiences in the etheric realm or meditation or whatever. It's giving you a sampling of what's there. And people are saying, what's happened? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're experiencing potential that lies within you. But because of the ingrained belief system that so many people have, especially in the twin flame community, you don't want to go there, or you don't want to believe it. I can recall one time, and when I did a video and say, can you have more than one twin flame? And I said, yes, you can. I mean, we had a shitstorm going on in the emails that I got, and I was the worst devil you ever saw, and people were at me left, right, and center. But a few people knew exactly what I was talking about, because I was talking about the process of what takes on going on. So the intensity of the connection between two people. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, well, he feeling what I'm feeling? Now, I would say to people, think about that question before you ask it to me. Is he feeling what I'm feeling? Is she feeling what I'm feeling? How the hell could she? She's not you and you're not her. So, no, he's not feeling what you're feeling, and you're not feeling what he's feeling. You think you are. You're imagining you are. All right? But it's not possible for you to feel what he's feeling totally, because you haven't even woke up to what you're feeling yet. That's why you have these catalytic experiences coming on, and the intensity of the connection is so strong. I'll tell you what, that people are not going to believe this, all right? Given 5 or 6 years down the road, all right, these connections that are taking place are not going to be that intense anymore. You know why? It won't be necessary, because we're like blockheads. The only way that someone can get our attention, that the universe can get our attention, that source can get our attention, is if it's so strong and so powerful that we have no choice but to pay attention to what's going on. That's who we are, all right? And that will wane as the years go on. It won't be necessary because we'll be more open and more aware of what's going on in that particular situation. And there won't be as much left that's being created as belief systems in the astral planes or the belief system realities, because they won't be there anymore. But right now, because we're into a cleaning process of what's going on, so what's taking place is all of these connections, the catalyst, the runner, the chaser, all of these different frames and aspects of what's called the twin flame connection are all coming together, and all of the signs and symptoms are all leading to the same thing. They're not leading to a twin flame, they're leading to a process. And the process is the unification of the individual, the unified field, and then a unified field that is created for the other person, and then the two people themselves can create a unified field, because all of the aspects of their personality and all of the aspects in their etheric body that are necessary have been cleansed and purged out. So when somebody says to you, well, why is the intensity so different? Now you will understand, because every person is different. And in many cases, what happens is when these connections take place, and here's another thing that goes on, is only one person experiences it. Why doesn't the other one? All right. The answer is very simple, because it may be just your time to awaken, and it's not the time of the other person to fully awaken at this point. I don't have all of the answers. I have some of them through experience. But in reality, when the other person is their time to awaken, they will experience in their personality to the degree of intensity that is necessary to loosen up and to get them to let go of any dysfunctional patterns and or belief system that are necessary for them to go. So understand that this is a process, and the traumas that you had in the teen years are going to affect you as you get into the intensity later. The other thing you'll need to take a look at, again, as mentioned before, is your personality. Everyone has a personality. If you really want to understand how intense it's going to be, take a look at your personality. Do a personality profile on yourself, or get someone else to profile you, all right? There are lots of other people who like to judge people, okay? I mean, it's a really cool thing to do. You know, instead of judging yourself, you can judge somebody else and say, okay, well, say, well, what am I like as a personality? Go and get your personality analyzed. It'll give you a blow-by-blow description of what you are. Then you can actually anticipate where the greatest resistance is going to be in getting you to change or to move forward. And the idea here is this: our present personality, and I'll say this to everyone, our present personality, even for those of us who think we're the most highly evolved on the planet and who are functioning at a certain vibration, is always open to change and growth. And when you're at a point where you're not accepting anymore that your personality, as you perceive or identify yourself with, is susceptible to change, you stop at that point and you don't go any further. And at that point, you can start to regress. Because the one thing that I do know that I've learned about spirituality, or evolution, if you want to call it that, is that it is a perpetual stream of growth, one way or the other. There's no such thing as vacation time. There's no such thing as time off because you've done well. And there's no such thing as rest. It is ongoing and continuous all the time. The reason that I can say that is because at the age of 36, all right, is when I started to awaken and I had to start dealing with my own personality profile. I activated the Kundalini awakening, a very intense awakening at 36. I didn't have a heart center activation until 5 years later. Nowadays, you have all of those together, all right? And I had to start dealing with my personality immediately as it goes on. I'm now 73, and Kundalini has never stopped. It's been active within me all of that time, sometimes very intensely, sometimes slowly, sometimes gently, sometimes I wish it wasn't there, all right? But it's never stopped. And that's the way that spiritual growth is. It's never going to stop. It has its rises and it falls, its rises and it falls, but it's always continuing on, so that your personality is always changing, growing, and evolving. What I find surprising at this point in my life, right now being 73, is the last people that I want to associate with is people my own age. I don't get it. I cannot, for the life of me, understand, and that's me, why people at 60 or 70 look like, well, crutches. They're taking popping pills. They live secluded lives. They're basically non-functional, physically, mentally, emotionally, and they are developing all sorts of diseases that are going on at this particular point. This shouldn't be happening at this time. We should be progressing and moving away from this as the etheric body is getting closer and closer to coming into three-dimensional reality as a vehicle. And this is what's taking place. So if you want to know how the connection is going to go back and take a look at your personal development, take a look at your personality, take a look at the major traumas that you've had in your life, because these are the first things that are going to start coming out in a soul-to-soul connection, or what you, if you want to call it, twin flame connection with other people. All right? Just a brief kind of description of it, maybe at a later date. I'll see what kind of comments I get on the video, and then maybe I can extrapolate with an additional piece of information. Take care, everybody.